الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد ربي أنتقنا بالهدى وألهمنا التقوى السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. We began our discussion last week, and we got to the point where we were able to prove the existence of God through numerous ways. The first way was through what Ayatollah Nasir Makarim Shirazi calls the closest way, and that is our the fitri way, basically, where innately we can sense the presence of a higher being, especially when we go through difficulties. And so the task would be for one to recognize that and then be conscious of it throughout and allow that fire to grow. The second way, he calls it the clearest way, where when we look at the world around us and we see such organization, that is clear for any intellectual mind to prove that there is an organizer behind that organization. And this is known as Burhanun Nazam, the clearest way when we look at the world around us. And I feel that this second way, honestly, is probably the most basic yet most sufficient way for us to be able to prove that nothing happens without there being an organizer or one who facilitates the things to happen. But then we decided to go one step further, and we decided to describe a slightly more philosophical approach to proving the existence of God by describing the need for a necessary existent. A necessary existent, by definition, is an existent which does not require any other existences for its own existence. As opposed to us, that we are dependent, for example, on air, we are dependent upon our parents who brought us into existence. This necessary existence is one that is not dependent upon anybody else. And the clearest way to prove that is that if we trace back existences, we conclude then that there has to be one existence who was not needy of any other existence and is the cause of all other existence to come into being. So that is how we can prove that there has to be a necessary existent. Now, the material is there in case you missed it last week. However, where we concluded with was that we have proven the need for a necessary existent, that there has to be someone who started everything off, and that existent did not need anything else to come into existence, and we've proven that. Now, what we are left with now is to say that how can we then prove that there cannot be more than one necessary existent? So we are going to use the number 2 as in let us suppose there are 2 necessary existences, because if we can accept that there are 2, then there could be 10, there could be 12, but we're trying to prove that there can only be one necessary existent. This third proof that we're going into depth and in is dense, right? So it may require more reading, and the book that covers this type of proof we gave last week, known as Theological Instructions by Sayyid Baitullah Misbah Yazdi. And it's quite dense. So the material today also requires you to focus, but inshallah it will tickle the mind because it reveals a lot of information. So let us suppose that there are 2 necessary existences. If there are 2 necessary existences, we are only left with a few possibilities. The first possibility would be that some existences are each existent, and each one of us and each thing that we see around us is created by both necessary existences together, and they work in cohesion with one another to bring about this existence. The second possibility is that some existences are created by one while the others are created by the other. So for example, the sun would be created by one and the moon would be created with the other. And you can use any examples you want then. The third possibility would be that one runs the show while the second just agrees with everything and just kind of takes a seat back to see how everything is run. Besides that, there are no other possibilities really. So let's look at each one in a little bit more detail. Um, if we say that each existence is created by both necessary existences together, this would mean that each necessary existent would give existence. Sorry for the repetition of this word, I couldn't find a better word. When each necessary existent would give existence to the same existent, it would mean that each necessary existent would provide an independent existence for that one existent. Yani, in other words, if both of them created me, I would have two existences, right? However, since there is only one existence that I have, this would negate the possibility of its existence coming from more than one necessary existence. It's quite a process of elimination to say that when we look around us, like let's say myself, I don't feel like I clearly know that I don't have two existences. There are not two Jaffars walking around. And so that in itself proves that it's come from one existence. Now, we could take it a step further and say that, okay, what about they work together? So one says that I will create the head, and the second says I will create the body, for example. And what begins to happen then is that there's a creation of dependency that is taking place, and the one who is creating the body is dependent upon the one who is creating the head, and they need each other. And we said that by definition, a necessary existence is one that does not need anything else and rather is independent from all other existences. And therefore, through that process of elimination, we dismiss this first theory to say that each existence is created by both necessary existences together. The second possibility is that some existence are created by one necessary existence, while others are created by another necessary existence. This would mean then that each existent is in existence because of its particular NE, or necessary existence. So I'll just call it NE to not repeat the word existent, if you don't mind. So if certain things are created by one and other things are created by the other, this would mean that every existence, um, there would be basically two existences working under two different necessary existences, right? Um, Consequently, what would happen is that we would have two systems and orders in this world. So, for example, if there were two necessary existences, or let's just say there were two gods, both gods would want to be known. And so they would both independently send prophets to mankind to teach their version of connection. And since we have looked through history and found that every man of God that has come has been talking about that same one necessary existence and not any other existence, it proves to us then that all existences are created by one necessary existence. If we were even to look at the world or the cone around us, to say that, okay, let's say they both created things independently. However, the harmony that we see within our system and in our world, even when, for example, we look at our bodies, the harmony that exists within it is a clear indication that there are not two different systems in place. Rather, there is only one system in place. And therefore, this possibility also becomes mute. And Allah says this, right? In the Holy Quran, when He says, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهِ لَفَسَدَتَا, that if there had been in the heavens and earth any God except Allah, they would have certainly been in a state of disorder, because two systems can't exist together. And so again, we are in the process of elimination, saying then, okay, that the second possibility is not there either. And so we come to the last possibility, and that is that one necessary existence runs the show, while the second one kind of agrees with everything. And we would agree that this defeats the purpose of the second NE. What's the point of it, right? Like if you can't have two presidents and one just agreeing with everybody else, we would say that that's insignificant, right? Like even when we look at England, for example, and we have the Queen and then we have the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is basically running the show. The Queen is there just as a figurehead, but no one really pays attention to the Queen as far as law is concerned, because it's inconsequential. And this here would also be inconsequential for there to be another existent who's not doing anything and is not part of the show. So when we're able to eliminate these by the process of deduction, the only conclusion we are left with is that there can only be one necessary existent. And so in the system of existences in the world, everything is possible existences, mumkin al-wujud, while there's only one necessary existent which started the entire process. Now, if there are questions, you should write them down, and then we'll discuss it in the end, because I'm sure there are. And inshallah, we'll be happy to answer them and learn from each other. Now, after proving the oneness of the necessary existent, the task is now to prove the qualities and the attributes of this existent. Because it's not sufficient just to say that it is a necessary existent, right? Because people who don't believe in God, for example, will understand through logic that there has to be a start to everything. And so some people will call it matter, some people will call it energy, some people will call it different things. So unless we get to the place where we can begin to define it, describe it, attach attributes to it through intellect, nothing else, we can then remove the possibility that this particular necessary existence has qualities like that which we see around us. So we see matter around us, we feel energy around us. But through attributing qualities to this existence, we will be able to eliminate everything else and only be left with qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as far as now in the book Theological Instructions, Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi, he basically says that now that we have proven the oneness of the necessary existent, we still can't call it God until we begin to apply or give it attributes by which then we will inshallah be able to recognize that this is indeed truly God. So it's a process of just thinking through what the qualities of this necessary existent are by the definition that we have already applied to what a necessary existence is. So by defining al-wajib al-wujud, the necessary existent, as an existence that does not require any cause for it, and it is the primary cause of everything else. Remember, we said everything stems from it. So we have already proven two qualities. The first quality is that it is independent. It's not needy, right? It's not muhtaj upon anybody else. It's fully independent, fully needless, and we would call that to be ghani, right? Like completely independent in its nature. And again, this is logically proven by simply defining the necessary existence. The second cause is that it is the cause of all possible existences, and this importance will come later. So first we prove its independence, and secondly, we prove its creational power or causational power to do everything. This is al-khaliqiyya, that this necessary existence must be the creator of everything else. So we have proven again its independence, and we've proven its creative ability. To build upon this, because the necessary existence is independent and not needy of any other existence, nor does it require a cause to come, we can confidently say then that it has always existed and will always exist. A being that does not require anything else to bring it into existence would mean that it has always existed. And a being that is not dependent upon anything else To continue its existence would mean that it doesn't have an end. And therefore, we have described Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or a necessary existence rather, as being something which has no beginning and has no end, simply by the definition. So through the definition, we're able to reach this stage. And these two attributes are called sarmadi, everlasting or eternal. So again, we have now proven four qualities of this necessary existent.